On July 20th, Malcolm-Jamal Warner drowned in Costa Rica. 2 days later, on July 22nd, the Wall Street Journal revealed that Trump knew his name was in the Jeffrey Epstein files. The timing wasn't a coincidence when you consider what Malcolm had said about Trump supporters before his death. "I think Mr. Trump's supporters, people who voted for him, you voted for misogyny and hate. There's no way around it." Those words proved prophetic in ways nobody expected, as racists celebrated his drowning online by posting "Blacks don't swim" across social media, mocking his death with comment about how black folks can't swim. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal was exposing exactly what Malcolm had warned about: Trump's criminal connections, reporting that Justice Department officials had told the president in May that his name was among many mentioned in the Epstein file. The evidence was so damning that even Trump's own Republican Party couldn't stomach protecting him. In a stunning move, the Republican Majority House Oversight Committee voted 82-0 to subpoena all documents related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. Malcolm's warning about Trump supporters embracing misogyny and hate wasn't political commentary. It was a prophecy about criminal behavior that would be exposed just days after his death. His final public statement about Trump came only weeks before he died in Costa Rica. While most celebrities stayed silent about a possible second Trump term, he delivered words that would prove prophetic when the Epstein connections were exposed. "I think Mr. Trump's supporters, people who voted for him, you voted for misogyny and hate. There's no way around it." These weren't his last words ever, but they were his last words about Trump, and they hit differently now that we know what was coming. What seemed like harsh political criticism in his final interview was actually a diagnosis of the exact criminal mindset that would be revealed days later. He wasn't talking about tax policy or immigration reform. He was talking about fundamental character, about how someone treats women and vulnerable people. He was calling out a worldview that reduces women to objects for male pleasure, exactly the mindset that would enable participation in Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking network. The backlash was swift and harsh. Trump supporters never forgave him for those words, attacking him on social media for years, questioning his right to speak on politics, and demanding he stay in his lane. But he had seen something they hadn't, or wouldn't admit they'd seen. "Do you want to stand up for what you say you believe in? Ending racism is not solely our responsibility. Eradicating racism is a shared burden," he said. He understood that powerful predators don't operate alone. They build networks, create systems of protection, and find allies willing to look the other way. When he talked about the shared burden of fighting injustice, he was preparing people for what was coming. The moment would discover Trump was actively covering up his connections to child trafficking. The timing of his warnings now feels almost supernatural. He was describing the exact psychology that would later manifest in criminal behavior. His diagnosis wasn't just campaign rhetoric. It was a foundation for relationships with men like Jeffrey Epstein. He saw the link between how Trump talked about women publicly and what that attitude would enable privately. Those words about Trump supporters now read like a roadmap to the Epstein scandal. He wasn't just criticizing a politician. He was diagnosing criminal behavior that had not yet been exposed. The same mindset that treats women as disposable objects is the same mindset that participates in trafficking networks, and now we know what Malcolm-Jamal Warner was really warning us about. Trump supporters had indeed voted for someone whose cruelty toward women would manifest in criminal connections to trafficking. His final public statement about Trump changes everything because it predicted the exact criminal psychology now being exposed through the Epstein files. But to understand how uncanny this timing truly was, you need to know what happened next. The drowning happened on a Sunday afternoon in Costa Rica during a family vacation that turned tragic when a riptide caught him and his daughter. Local surfers managed to save his daughter but couldn't reach him in time, and by the time they got him back to shore, it was too late. News spread quickly across social media. Malcolm-Jamal Warner dead at 54, and tributes poured in from colleagues remembering his kindness, fans sharing favorite Cosby Show moments, and activists honoring his courage in speaking truth to power. But alongside the tributes came something else, something that proved every warning he had ever given about the state of American character. Uncivilized mobs online began making jokes about how the reason he died is because black folks can't swim, turning "Blacks don't swim" into a hashtag. People were openly celebrating his death based solely on race. The same people who claimed to care about protecting children mocking a man who had dedicated his life to fighting for justice. And this wasn't hidden in dark internet corners. It was mainstream social media, with people using their real names and faces. But sometimes the universe is perfect timing. Just 2 days after his death, while racists were still celebrating his drowning, the Wall Street Journal dropped a bombshell. Justice Department officials had told President Trump in May that his name was among many mentioned in the Epstein files. Trump had known for months that his name was all over the Epstein documents, yet while making campaign promises about transparency and exposing corruption, he already knew that doing so would reveal his own ties to a trafficker. Every promise of transparency was a calculated lie meant to protect himself while manipulating supporters who believed they were fighting for justice. The timing made it feel almost supernatural, because in the same week America lost someone who truly fought for justice, we learned that the man he had warned us about was actively covering up his own connection to child trafficking. The same people mocking Malcolm's death with racist slaves were defending a man hiding evidence of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. This was exactly what Malcolm meant about Trump supporters. They don't actually care about protecting children, only about protecting powerful men who share their tribal identity, even when those men are connected to trafficking. The racist celebration of his death and the defense of Trump's Epstein cover-up are the same phenomenon, complete abandonment of stated principles in favor of hatred and power. His death revealed the moral bankruptcy he had been warning about for years. They celebrated the drowning of a man who fought for justice while defending a man who covers up connections to child trafficking. That's not political disagreement. That's a corrupt mindset he said would define Trump's movement. But his warnings went deeper than just predicting racist responses. He had actually diagnosed a criminal psychology that would later be exposed in the Jeffrey Epstein files. His warnings about Trump's character weren't just rhetoric. The Epstein files reveal it was criminal behavior involving exploitation, and the evidence emerging from federal investigations proves his diagnosis was spot on. When Epstein was asked in a 2010 deposition, "Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females?" A man who had answered far more sensitive questions with ease suddenly invoked his 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights. This wasn't a reaction of someone with nothing to hide. It was a move of a man protecting a powerful friend from criminal exposure. The question wasn't random either. Federal investigators had specific intelligence about Trump's involvement in Epstein's network, enough to ask directly about girls, and Epstein's panic spoke volumes about what that intelligence contained. Maria Farmer's testimony drives it home. "She's not here for you," Epstein told someone before escorting him into another office, revealing how Epstein managed access to victims based on client preferences. When Trump was sent to another office where there was apparently a young girl, the horrifying reality of Malcolm's warnings became clear. This wasn't casual socializing but systematic criminal exploitation, with Trump as a participant. His warning about Trump supporters predicted exactly this kind of behavior, powerful men using their position to access and abuse vulnerable children. The evidence keeps piling up. CNN found photos of Epstein at Trump's wedding. Flight logs placed Trump on Epstein's plane multiple times. And there's testimony about Trump asking Epstein why he preferred married women, to which Trump replied, "Because it's so wrong." That's not someone who respects boundaries. It's someone who gains pleasure from violating trust and causing harm. All of this validates what Malcolm saw in Trump's character. His warnings about Trump supporters weren't just campaign rhetoric. They expose a foundation for criminal behavior involving children. The same mindset that celebrated Malcolm's drowning death with racist mockery is the same mindset that protects powerful predators from accountability. His final words about Trump now take on new weight because they predicted the exact criminal psychology revealed in the Epstein files. He saw the connection between Trump's public disrespect for women and the private behavior that attitude would enable, and the evidence proves he was right. Trump supporters had voted for someone whose cruelty would manifest in criminal connections to child trafficking. And Malcolm didn't just predict the crimes. He predicted how the system would protect the criminals, foreseeing the systematic cover-up that would follow. The same institutional corruption he fought his entire life is now shielding Trump from accountability for his Epstein connections. The FBI and DOJ memorandum stating, "We will not release any files. There's nothing to see here. We're not going to charge anyone. This is over," was issued by Trump's Justice Department in July 2025, declaring the Epstein investigation closed, claiming no client list exists, and refusing to release further documents. This wasn't legitimate policy. It was criminal obstruction designed to protect Trump from exposure. And the cover-up runs deeper than document suppression. Todd Blanche, Trump's deputy attorney general and former personal defense attorney, has been making private visits to Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, the woman who trafficked children for Epstein, receiving special attention from the highest levels of Trump's Justice Department. Ghislaine Maxwell is not a reliable witness, and the idea that someone facing the rest of a 20-year sentence might have the opportunity to dramatically reduce it is exactly what he predicted when he warned about Trump's character. The same mindset that treats women and children as disposable objects also treats justice as something to be bought and sold. Maxwell is being offered a potential sentence reduction in exchange for staying quiet about Trump's involvement. This isn't justice. It's systematic witness tampering at the highest levels of government. Meanwhile, actual victims are being deliberately shut out. Maria Farmer, who first reported Epstein to the FBI in 1996, has been told she will have to wait until November 2027 to access her own case files, a delayed time to coincide with the end of Trump's term, long after public attention has moved on. This is the institutional corruption he spent years fighting. The same system that ignored victims for decades is now protecting the perpetrator who happens to be president. The very agencies that claim to protect children are actively covering up evidence of child trafficking to shield Trump. The cover-up proves his point about Trump supporters. This isn't just about individual crimes, but a systematic abuse of power to protect predators. They didn't just vote for cruel rhetoric. They voted for someone who would use presidential power to obstruct justice and protect fellow predators from consequences. He saw this coming because he understood how power really works in America. The same forces that allowed Epstein to operate for decades are now protecting Trump from accountability. His warnings about the shared burden of fighting injustice were meant to prepare us for this moment, when fighting corruption means taking on the entire system, not just individual bad actors. But even he couldn't have predicted that the evidence would become so overwhelming that Trump's own allies would break ranks. The most powerful vindication of his prophecy came when Republicans themselves revolted over the Epstein connections. The same people who defended Trump through every other scandal could not stomach protecting him from child trafficking allegations. Last night, in defiance of the president, the Republican majority House Oversight Committee voted 8-2 to subpoena all documents related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. An overwhelming vote from his own party to investigate their president's connections to child trafficking proved his point about Trump's character. When confronted with evidence of crimes against children, even Trump's most loyal allies have limits. Representative Nancy Mace led this rebellion, publicly demanding transparency about Trump's Epstein ties, her defiance underscoring how damning the evidence truly is. When Republicans are willing to subpoena their own president over child trafficking, the scandal runs deeper than political maneuvering. It is moral revulsion at criminal behavior. The revolt extended beyond politics. Conservative media figures who had defended Trump for years began acknowledging uncomfortable truths about his relationship with Epstein. Even his most loyal allies were forced to confront evidence that shattered their carefully constructed narratives. Mark Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, sat down with CNN and confirmed just how close Trump and Epstein were, saying, "They were good friends. It's documented that Donald flew on Jeff's plane a number of times." This admission destroys the narrative of casual acquaintance and validates what he saw in Trump's character. The Republican revolt is not mere political calculation. It is a reaction to undeniable evidence, and Trump's response only revealed the corrupt mindset Malcolm had predicted all along. Instead of embracing transparency or showing concern for victims, Trump attacked Republicans who dared to prioritize children's safety over his political survival, calling them weak and disloyal for wanting to investigate his connections to child trafficking. This proved his diagnosis was perfect. Trump supporters had voted for someone whose cruelty toward vulnerable people would manifest in crimes against children, and when that became undeniable, even some of his allies couldn't stomach it. The moral reckoning he predicted is happening in real time, with Republicans choosing basic human decency over tribal loyalty. But the revolt also exposes those who truly embody the corruption he warned about. The people still defending Trump despite knowing about his Epstein connections have abandoned any pretense of caring about children, proving that their stated values were always lies masking their real motivation: power at any cost. His prophecy foresaw this exact moment, when corruption would become so extreme that even Trump's allies couldn't defend it. He died warning us about this reckoning, and his words are now vindicated by Trump's own party abandoning him over child trafficking connections. Yet the ultimate vindication of his prophecy is what his death accomplished, something his life never could. Death has a way of amplifying voices that speak truth to power, and in the weeks following his drowning, as Trump's Epstein connections exploded into public view, his warnings took on an almost supernatural ability to predict events. Even he and his memory were not immune to the uncivilized mutt, those who seize every opportunity to cause confusion and disruption. The racist mockery of his death with "Blacks Don't Swim" hashtags proved his prophecy with devastating precision. The same people celebrating a drowning victim were defending a man with documented connections to child trafficking. This isn't cognitive dissonance. It's the exact moral bankruptcy he predicted would define Trump's movement. But his death achieved something his life never could. It created a moral reckoning that forced America to confront the contradiction between stated values and actual behavior. When you defend someone who covers up connections to child trafficking while mocking the death of someone who fought for justice, you lose any claim to moral high ground. For him, fighting racism was not a political stance but a way of life. We deal with racism every single day that we are breathing. That understanding of justice made his warning so prophetic. He wasn't making campaign predictions. He was diagnosing a moral pathology that would manifest in criminal behavior, including participation in child trafficking networks. The cosmic timing felt like divine intervention. As racists celebrated his drowning, evidence emerged proving every warning he'd issued about Trump's character. In the same week America lost one of its most principled voices, we discovered the man he had warned us about was even worse than imagined. His prophecy is complete. Trump supporters did vote for someone whose cruelty toward women and children would manifest in criminal connections to child trafficking. The same mindset that celebrates his death with racist mockery is the same mindset that protects powerful predators from accountability. The victims of Epstein's network are finally finding their voices. Subpoenas are being issued, and investigations are moving forward. Even Trump's most loyal supporters are now being forced to choose between tribal loyalty and basic human decency when confronted with evidence of child trafficking connections. His final words about Trump changed everything because they predicted the exact criminal mindset and systemic corruption now being exposed. The man who died fighting for justice has become more prophetic in death than he ever was in life. When the full truth about the Epstein files emerges, when every document is released and every testimony is heard, history will remember that he saw it coming. He warned us about the corruption that would manifest in protecting child traffickers, and his voice will echo through every revelation until justice is served. The racist trolls thought they were silencing his message by celebrating his death. Instead, they amplified it beyond anything they could imagine. His warnings about Trump now carry the weight of prophecy, vindicated by criminal evidence proving he was right about everything. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.